Judge S. warning revealed. Black man fined for tone is actually an amazing federal prosecutor. Malcolm Carter stood at the intersection of disbelief and indignation as the gavel fell, and the room buzzed with whispered confusion. A fine for tone? The judge's words echoed in his mind, stinging more than the penalty itself. It was a moment that transformed the trajectory of his life, one he could never have anticipated. The courtroom, once a sanctuary for justice, was now a battleground painted with prejudice, and Malcolm, the shining hope forged from humble beginnings, could barely recognize it. The sun hung low in the sky, casting warm hues over the small Midwestern town where Malcolm had lived and fought for nearly 2 decades as a passionate federal prosecutor. Cracks of underlying racism had wormed their way into what appeared to be a salt-of-the-earth community, and he was determined to expose those injustices. Now he stood branded by a judge known for his intolerance, and that branding began to dissipate the optimism that had ignited his career. Out in the hallway, the murmurs of townsfolk grew louder, their heated opinions swirling like dry leaves caught in the autumn wind. Many were shocked, while others remained stoically silent, fearful of speaking out. Malcolm felt the weight of their judgment, each caution whispered twisting deeper into his chest. How could they witness this injustice and turn their backs? And then came an unwelcome sound. The creak of the door behind him signaled the return of his estranged father, a formidable war veteran cloaked in a uniform of pride yet burdened by regret. Would the old man extend a hand of reconciliation, or deepen the divide that had kept them estranged? Nothing could prepare Malcolm for the tempest of emotions that followed. His father, with his stoic demeanor, spoke of honor and sacrifice while Malcolm's heart raced with memories of longing and disappointment. "Malcolm, I want to talk." His father's voice cracked as he attempted connection, but Malcolm's defenses flared at the contact. Memories of harsh words and missed opportunities flooded his mind, but the sense of urgency was undeniable. The courtroom was just a microcosm of their lives. It didn't take long before the community began to rally around Malcolm. Outrage blossomed into discussion. Friends and neighbors started to share their own experiences, revealing deep-rooted hurt and a yearning for equality that resonated through the American fabric. With each encounter, Malcolm became the beacon of hope, encouraging them to confront not only the judge's ruling, but the hypocrisy suffocating their relationships. The day of the town hall meeting arrived, a pivotal moment where Malcolm would stand beside voices long silenced. Nerves coursed through him. What if his father faltered? What if he, so accustomed to the halls of justice, couldn't hold the space for their family's healing? Malcolm stood at the front, his father next to him, ready for the fears and hopes of the community to intertwine. "Before we continue," he interjected, trying to regain focus amid simmering tensions, "I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As the crowd settled back into the moment, Malcolm's father remained tense beside him. The audience, brimming with hope and confrontation, had a similar weight to those years of expectations that hung between them. What came next would bind or break them. Just as his father moved to speak, a sudden revelation shattered the air, provoking gasps and shifting the course of their destinies. Was this new truth the answer they sought, or a further unraveling, leaving Malcolm on the precipice of doubt about justice and family? Malcolm's heart raced, the space between him and his father charged with the tension of unspoken words and years of hurt. The crowd leaned in, an eager audience awaiting the next act in this unfolding drama. Silence wrapped around them, holding its breath. Malcolm felt the weight of their gaze, a collective yearning for change, for resolution. His father cleared his throat. "What I'm about to say," he hesitated, soaking in the moment. "Isn't easy for me." The words hung in the air, heavy like storm clouds ready to burst. "I've made mistakes." "You've made mistakes," he nodded toward Malcolm, eyes glistening with a mix of regret and hope. "But it's time we owned up to them." Malcolm felt the heat of his father's shame wash over him. Could they really step into the light together? He leaned closer, instinctively wanting to grasp this moment. "Dad," he started, but his father raised a hand to halt him. "Let me finish," he said, voice firm yet trembling. There is something I have hidden. Something that shaped not only my life but yours too. I didn't just fight for my country. I fought against something that felt like my own skin. I imposed beliefs upon you without realizing the harm they caused. The murmurs from the assembled crowd flared again. A mix of disbelief and curiosity. Malcolm's mind spun. Could it be that his father was finally breaking down the walls of their fractured relationship? Could this be a path forward? An opportunity to rebuild? As his father spoke, he could feel a world of pain and unresolved feelings pouring out. The truth is, I was never proud of what happened to you growing up without my presence, without my support. But I was too wrapped up in my own battles to see yours clearly. Malcolm's breath caught. With each word, a spark of hope ignited within him, illuminating the shadows that had cloaked their past. The voices in the room buzzed as if the crowd could feel the shift. This honesty was magnetic, drawing people closer to Malcolm and his father. Suddenly, a woman in the front row stood up, tears brimming in her eyes. You think you're alone in this, Malcolm? My son faced the same injustices. We're standing here, all of us, on broken ground. Malcolm's gaze swept over the crowd. Each face reflected struggles met with resilience. They were all woven from the same fabric, bearing scars yet still ready to take a stand. Did they have the strength to unite against the forces keeping them apart? He took a breath, ready to speak again, but the momentum was building. His father turned toward the audience. And each of us can change this narrative. We can stand together to challenge this injustice. The gavel that fell today doesn't just punish one person, it echoes throughout our community, holding all of us accountable. There was an urgency in his tone, a call to arms that resonated deeply as the audience began to respond, voices rising in agreement. Malcolm felt something swell within him, a combination of anger, frustration, and just under the surface an exhilarating sense of purpose. He exchanged a glance with his father, a silent agreement forged through years of discontent. They were both prepared now to take a stand. The meeting transformed into a rallying cry, each person adding their voice. Malcolm stepped forward again, ready to encourage this empowerment among the community. Let us not just speak today. Let us take action. We can change the way justice is served. Just as he was filled with determination, a figure in the back of the room caught his eye. Someone he hadn't noticed until now. A familiar face, one that brought with it a wealth of memories and questions. What did this person know about his family's past? And how would their presence shift the dynamics of this already charged meeting? The murmurs of the crowd faded as Malcolm's attention locked onto that figure, the air around him charged with new possibilities. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain: turning the page on the past had just begun, and the truth would soon emerge. Malcolm's heart thudded, a beat matched by the pulsating energy of the room. The familiar face in the back, now coming into focus, stirred a whirlwind of emotions. It was Marcus, his childhood friend and first mentor, the very person who had been a part of the early days of Malcolm's journey. He hadn't seen him in years. Questions flooded Malcolm's mind. Why was he here? What kind of influence had he held during the years they were apart? As Marcus stepped forward, the room shifted. The energy crackled, adding a layer of intensity to the moment. Malcolm, he began, voice steady but filled with emotion, I knew you'd find your way back to this place, and I knew you'd need more than just your father's words today. Malcolm felt a rush of surprise and uncertainty. How could Marcus, someone so close, yet so far, understand his need in this moment? Malcolm's father shifted awkwardly, sensing the renewed tension. What do you mean? He asked, his voice a mixture of defensiveness and concern. The audience watched, captivated by this unexpected twist, everyone holding their breath for Marcus's reply. We are all affected by the systems we exist within, Marcus said, locking eyes with Malcolm. And sometimes those systems create divisions even between those we hold most dear. I know your perspective, Malcolm, and I also know the weight of your father's shame, but we can't stop here. The crowd murmured in agreement, aware they were witnessing a confrontation that reached far beyond father and son. There was an opportunity here, one that spoke to deeper societal wounds. Malcolm felt a surge of clarity. It was as if he had been wandering in darkness and suddenly a spotlight had been turned on. Tell them, Marcus urged Malcolm gently, tell them what you told me about your experience with the system. You can show them that this isn't just about your family, it's about all of us. Malcolm swallowed hard, the gravity of his role pressing down on him. Memories flooded into his mind, unjustful encounters, the times he had felt powerless and unseen. I never anticipated how deep the injustice went. He began, glancing at his father, who was visibly processing what was unfolding. I thought if I worked hard and proved myself, it wouldn't matter what I looked like. But I was wrong. The way I was treated, he hesitated. The way my community has been treated. It shows that the system isn't broken. It's designed that way. Words flowed from him now, each sentence igniting resolution. The flickers of anger turned to flame as he articulated each brush with the law, each emotional scar that came from countless burdens carried in silence. The audience listened intently, captivated by his truth. Malcolm could see Marcus nodding, and in that moment, a bond was rekindled, not just between them, but extending to everyone present. He felt strength growing, an awareness that their pain was shared. We belong to a community forged from loss and resilience. This isn't merely a family's story. It is a call for all communities to rally forth against injustice and inequality. A wave of applause erupted as Malcolm finished. His father's eyes glistened with hope, filling the chasm that had separated them for so long. Yet in the backdrop, he noticed that familiar figure watching intently, noticing everything, absorbing the realization of what Malcolm was trying to communicate. Each beat of applause surged through Malcolm like a rebirth, but a flicker of apprehension tugged at him. Would they truly join forces, or was this just a momentary spark? As the crowd quieted down, the powerful silence that followed hummed with potential. Malcolm knew there was more to address, not just for himself but for all those counting on him to take this leap. His gaze returned to Marcus, a silent question lingering between them. What would be the next step? The journey had just ignited, and there remained an underlying mystery bound to be unraveled. Are we ready to turn this moment into action? Malcolm asked, anticipation crackling in the air. Just as he received an enthusiastic response, a discordant voice cut through, challenging the newfound momentum, making it clear that the struggle was far from over. Malcolm's heart raced as the voice pierced the air, urgent and unyielding. He turned towards the source, a tall man in a gray suit with an air of authority, standing up among the crowd. His expression was serious, almost combative. "We're tired of these empty promises," he shouted, his voice echoing in the room. "Just because you feel good about speaking out doesn't mean anything will change. Who here actually believes that?" The room felt like it had taken a collective inhale, tension rising like steam. Malcolm's mind scrambled. The enthusiastic support from moments earlier felt fragile against this unexpected pushback. His father clenched his fists, anger flashing in his eyes. "Who does he think he is?" Someone whispered from the back, but Malcolm couldn't ignore the validity in the man's assertion. Was he right? Were they just shouting into the void? "Maybe it doesn't change immediately," Malcolm replied, trying to steady his voice. "But this is how change begins. We have to voice our experiences to challenge what's wrong." He looked around, searching for support. Some nodded, but others remained skeptical, their faces shadowed by doubt. The tall man stepped closer, brows knitted and eyes narrowing. "Words without action are nothing. You call for unity, but how many have your back when the threats show up? Have they ever paid for our pain? You think your father has changed? Look at him." That stung. Malcolm felt his father flinch beside him, and for a moment, he was lost, searching for a response. Was everything they had forged together really that easy to dismantle by the weight of one voice? "Malcolm, stand tall," Marcus spoke, cutting through the tension. "You have to remember that real conversations start with discomfort. This is the moment to engage with those who doubt us. It's a chance to bridge the divide." Malcolm nodded, grateful for the steadiness in Marcus's tone. He stepped forward, feeling the heat of the spotlight once again. "Everyone here has a story. Behind every doubt is a fear of change. I know it's hard to believe we can make an impact. I faced those fears just like many of you." He paused, letting his words settle in the hearts of the audience. "But together we're stronger. We cannot walk alone anymore. It's time to look at one another and realize we're a part of something greater than ourselves." The crowd began to murmur again, but Malcolm sensed a shift, an undercurrent of agreement weaving back in. Hope flared anew, igniting the faces before him. "Change is uncomfortable, And it requires action. We can stand up to the systems that hurt us, but we need to do it together, he insisted, heart pounding and pulse racing. This is about more than my family or my community. It's our collective fight. We deserve thorough conversations, not empty words. As the audience contemplated his message, Malcolm suddenly felt the quiet hum of energy building again, but uncertainty lingered like a specter. Would this really lead them toward action? Or would they retreat into their corners once it got tough? Then a figure rose in the back. A woman with fierce determination in her eyes, waving her hand to speak. "Yes, right," she shouted, her voice cutting through the air. "But we need more than words. We need plans. What's next?" Malcolm's breath caught in his throat. She was correct. They needed a path forward. But where would they start? What if the very foundation they stood on crumbled beneath them? Malcolm looked at Marcus, then at his father, desperate for answers. As murmurs grew louder, and people began to stand to form small groups, plotting their course. The air was thick with anticipation. The atmosphere shimmered with possibility, but the weight of uncertainty pressed down, lingering. "Let us turn this moment into a movement," Malcolm said, his voice steady and resolute. But deep inside, doubt twisted like a snake. Would they really take the next step or slip back into silence? Would they be the change they needed to see? The answer seemed just out of reach, yet it hung heavily in the space, ripe for exploration. The true challenge was only beginning. Malcolm's heart thudded in his chest as the murmurs surged into a cacophony of voices, each one fraying at the edges of his resolve. He glanced from Marcus to his father, the question swirling in his mind like leaves caught in a gust of wind. What would it take to turn their passion into purposeful action? Would the people rally behind him? "All right, everybody, let us settle down," Marcus called, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture, though his own heart raced beneath the weight of expectation. Malcolm could see the audience beginning to form circles, some eager, some hesitant. The energy felt electric, but he couldn't ignore the fear seeping into the room. "Let us take a moment," Malcolm urged, stepping back into the center. "Let's really think about what we want to achieve today. Change isn't just about talking. It's about planning, organizing, and following through. We need concrete actions." The woman who had spoken before, her name still a mystery, stepped forward again. "Then let us break it down. What steps do we need?" Her voice rang clear, invigorating. Malcolm nodded, inspired. "Right. Let us brainstorm ideas. We have to identify the issues most important to us. What do we stand for?" The audience began shouting suggestions, voices overlapping in a rush of enthusiasm. Education. Jobs. Defending our rights. Each word felt like a spark thrown into an open flame, heating the collective spirit. "Okay," Malcolm managed to shout over the din, "education is critical. But what about the resources for our youth? And what can we do about job opportunities?" A young man rose from the front row. "What if we reached out to local businesses? We need to build partnerships. That's how we create real opportunities." "Yes, yes." Malcolm felt a swell of emotion, excitement propelling him forward. "But let us also discuss our rights. We can't ignore the systems that are systematically set to hold us back." "I'm a teacher," another voice chimed in. "I can organize workshops in our community to educate everyone about their rights. We need to empower each other." "Yes," Malcolm breathed, his pulse quickening. "We can unite these ideas. Let's create a plan that combines education, job access, and legal rights." Suddenly, the gray-suited man reappeared at the edge of the circle, his expression hardened yet curious. "Is this really going to matter? You want to build something, but how do we know it will last?" The challenge hung in the air once more, heavy and unwelcome. A murmur of discontent rippled through the crowd. Was this man right? Was all their talk just a fleeting moment, destined to fade into the shadows? Malcolm paused, searching for a way to respond. "Nothing worth doing is without risk. If we don't take this chance, we'll never know what we can achieve. Are you willing to risk the possibility of failure?" The crowd nodded, some faces lighting up, others still apprehensive. They were at a precipice, their nervous energy mirrored in Malcolm's racing pulse. "What do we want?" Malcolm shouted, raising his fists. "Action. What do we need?" "Plans," they replied, growing louder with each repetition. The dynamic shifted, full of heat and purpose. A tidal wave of passion swelled within him. Hear that? We need to build momentum from here. We can't let this fire die down, he called, feeling the rush of hope ignite within the hearts around him. Let us plan our next meeting. Let us hold ourselves accountable. The sense of urgency pulled them all together. The air electric with something more profound than just words. It was hope giving birth to purpose, a fragile yet fierce flame begging for wind. But just as they began to turn thoughts into actions, another voice broke through the cracked, agitated sound of someone on the outskirts of the crowd. And when we face opposition, when the world pushes back, Malcolm's heart sank. Doubt threatened to cloud the moment. Would this potential force be extinguished by fear of the fight ahead? He took a deep breath, struggling to steady the tremble of his own anxiety. Together we stand. If we can face our fears now, in this moment we can face anything, he said, with resolve echoing through each word. But would they truly stand together when the storms of opposition finally raged? Would their courage hold when the shadows loomed? The question hung tantalizingly in the air, gripping them all with uncertainty as they pushed forward toward their next step. Would they rise to the occasion? The journey ahead was still unfolding, each step heavy with weight and promise. Malcolm stood in the center of the makeshift gathering, feeling the weight of every gaze upon him. The hesitation of the crowd fed into his own uncertainties, but the flickering flame of hope simmered at the back of his mind. This was their moment and he had to push through the doubt. Let us think about what happens when we face opposition, he began, leaning into the unease. It's not just about what we want, it's about how we respond when things get tough. Is anyone here ready to share their experiences with that? A woman stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. I've seen friends lose their jobs for speaking out, she said, voice quivering with the burden of her story. They asked for fair wages and were let go almost immediately. Feels like there are so many walls in the way. Malcolm's heart ached seeing her vulnerability. But you're standing here, he reminded her, his voice firm but kind. That takes courage. And it's why we need to support one another. So those walls come crumbling down together. Nodding in agreement, the crowd began to murmur about their own fears, their own battles against a world that often seemed unforgiving. The momentum shifted as one after another, stories spilled forth. Last week, my daughter was flagged for wanting to participate in a local science fair. They said her ideas were irrelevant, a father replied, anger cutting through him like a knife. But why shouldn't she have the chance to shine? Because people feel threatened when we rise, an elderly man added, his voice steady with years of wisdom. But when we weave our voices together, we form something beautiful. It's like a tapestry, each thread matters. Each voice matters. A round of approving murmurs swept through the crowd, igniting an unexpected fire inside Malcolm. He could see them coming alive. Their voices blended, creating a harmony he had never witnessed before. A chance for change was stirring, and he felt it crackling in the air. Let us celebrate every voice, Malcolm exclaimed, the excitement bubbling within him. Let us create moments that honor these stories, moments that bring our community together. Just think of the workshops, the business partnerships. Our collective experience can fuel us forward. Can we set up a community board? Someone suggested. A space to share stories and spark solutions? Yes, Malcolm cried. Let us make it happen. Let us make this a place for learning, sharing, and action. The crowd erupted into a chorus of agreements and urgent planning. Plans for meetings to engage local businesses, organize workshops, and channel their concerns into tangible projects. Hope enveloped them like a warm embrace. But as the energy reached its peak, Malcolm felt a shiver trace down his spine. There was still that looming question. What if their resolve was tested before they were ready? Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted the gray-suited man again, lurking at the edge of the meeting like a shadow. Malcolm's heart dropped. Was this a warning sign? Would there be pushback before they could even take their first steps? Together we'll figure this out, Malcolm reminded himself, gripping the podium tighter. He met the man's piercing gaze, feeling the defiance swell within him. Let him come, he thought, ready to rally his people as the voices surged around him, hope intertwined with the fear of the unknown. Would their unity be enough to withstand the storms that threatened? With every heart pounding louder than the last, the crowd affirmed their commitment. But in the midst of that rising chant, Malcolm couldn't shake the sensation that trouble was inching closer. The battle for their voices had just begun as they left with their plans set. Another whispered question tugged at Malcolm's insides. How far could their courage carry them when the winds of change shifted against their backs? Would they be ready for the fight ahead? Or would it scatter their dreams like so many fallen leaves? Malcolm walked away from the makeshift gathering, pulse racing, but a mix of hope and trepidation coursing through him. The energy of the crowd echoed in his mind as he navigated the winding back alleys toward home. He replayed the stories in his head, how each person had conjured their pain into a rallying call for change. Each voice was a lifeline, and yet, they still had the specter of the gray-suited man lurking in the shadows. He stepped into his small apartment. The familiar scent of old books and coffee welcomed him. He let out a sigh, wishing for a moment of peace, but his mind wouldn't rest. The question loomed larger. What were the stakes? That night, as he lay in bed, the world around him faded, but that man's eyes remained. They felt like a warning. Was he just a bystander, or was he plotting something darker? As sleep began to pull him under, a soft knock echoed through the silence. "Malcolm, are you awake?" It was Claire, his neighbor and friend, standing at his door with a worried look on her face. She often brightened the mood with her laughter and warmth, but tonight, her expression was lined with worry. "Yeah, come in," he murmured, rubbing at his tired eyes. Claire stepped inside and drew the door shut behind her. "I saw you at the gathering. It was powerful." But she hesitated, letting the words hang between them. "I've been hearing things. Rumblings in the neighborhood. People are worried about backlash." Malcolm's stomach dropped. Backlash? A few folks have been talking about speaking out against the changes. They're scared. The city council has already been eyeing what you're doing. Some think you shouldn't get too loud, you know? Too many voices might just bring someone down on us. He felt a tide of anger and frustration swell within him. But isn't that what we want? To be heard? To make a difference? We can't let fear silence us, Claire. I know. You have to understand, Malcolm. Not everyone has your fire. Not everyone thinks we can win this fight. For a moment, silence fell heavy in the air. He could see her point, again feeling the heartache of seeing his community split between courage and caution. But if we don't try, we might as well stay silent forever. What about all those stories we shared? They deserve to be told. Claire stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. And they will be. But you need to be careful. Hold on to that fire, but maybe temper it with strategy, yeah? We need to be smart about this. Malcolm nodded, though doubt poked at his resolve. Could he temper his passion? His heart was set on lifting them, not just a few but everyone who had been pushed aside. As they talked late into the night, they made plans to gather again, to strategize, to bolster the voices that felt small. They would need to find ways to empower, not just ignite. Claire left him with a hopeful smile, encouraging him to rest, but as the door closed behind her, he sat in the stillness, a weight pressing on his chest. The world outside was shifting, a soft wind rustling with whispers of something unknown. Malcolm lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling, heart still racing. He needed to find a way to make their voices resonate without drawing the kind of attention that could undo everything. And yet, how could he protect them without stifling the very spirit that brought them together? Morning would come with more questions, but for now, he soon found himself drifting into uneasy sleep, with the gray-suited man heavy on his mind as he contemplated the fine line between fear and courage. What would he risk in the quest for change? And what would it truly take to rise against the looming darkness? Morning light streamed through the thin curtains, casting a warm glow in the small space. Malcolm woke slowly, the weight of night still clinging to him. The dreams had been restless, filled with hints of the gray-suited man, his piercing eyes offering a challenge that felt too close to home. He rolled out of bed, stretching, but the tension in his shoulders didn't ease. The meeting with Claire replayed in his mind. They needed a plan, not just passion. Malcolm brewed a strong cup of coffee, hoping the bitter warmth would shake the anxiety loose. As he sipped, he looked out the window and saw the streets gradually coming to life. Children scampered to waiting school buses, while neighbors exchanged quick hellos, but an edge lingered in the air. Suddenly, a loud knock on his door jarred him from his thoughts. It was Anna from the first gathering, her eyes wide and frantic. "Malcolm, you have to come. They're doing a pop-up meeting at the community center. Right now? He asked, heart quickening. Yes. It sounds serious. Things are heating up. He grabbed his jacket, the hefty fabric reassuring against the cool October air. Walking alongside Anna, he could feel adrenaline coursing through him. It was thrilling and terrifying at the same time. As they neared the community center, the chatter of voices grew louder, carried on the wind, and he felt that familiar rush of purpose ignite within him. The lobby was packed. People huddled in groups, whispers punctuated by the occasional raised voice. As he squeezed through the throng, he caught snippets of conversation, mentions of threats, community division, even a hint of violence. Fear bubbled beneath the surface, chilling him. A makeshift stage had been assembled at the front. As Malcolm stepped forward, he glanced at the faces around him. They were filled with concern, uncertainty, but also determination. He could see Claire standing by the front, her hand raised for silence. His heart anchored itself in the shared intensity of the moment. "All right, everyone," she called out, a fierce spark igniting her voice. "I know there are rumors and fears right now, but we are here together to discuss the best way forward, not to let these threats divide us. We've got to stand strong." Malcolm felt a wave of hope surge through him. Perhaps this was it. This was the time for their voices to unify. They began to share their concerns openly, each person adding to the growing swell of ideas and strategies. Moments of empowerment sparked courage among the crowd. But as they spoke, Malcolm noticed an uncomfortable tension in the back of the room. A figure in a gray suit, arms crossed, eyes scanning the crowd. That man. Malcolm's heart raced again. Who was he? Why was he here? Claire caught his eye, her expression swinging from fear to resolve. "Don't let him intimidate you," she whispered as they traded glances. "We speak louder, we stand stronger." Determined, Malcolm took a deep breath and stepped forward, stealing the attention of the room. "What we're fighting for is more than just change for ourselves. It's about honoring the lives and stories that brought us here. We have to keep moving. We have to make sure everyone knows we will not be silenced any longer." His words hung heavily in the air, resonating deep within them. There was a collective nodding, a swell of agreement. Yet the gray suit shifted forward, taking a step into the light, and the murmurs of uncertainty began to ripple through the crowd again. "Let us not forget how those who speak loudest often pay the steepest price," he warned, voice smooth as silk but sharp like a knife. Malcolm's heart sank. Fear was creeping back in, but he saw the fire in Claire's eyes. Everyone was looking to him. This was the defining moment. What would he say next? Could he rally them against the very darkness that threatened their newfound unity? The crowd was poised, waiting for a spark, a fire, a leader. The stakes were higher than ever. And as that man's gaze locked onto Malcolm, a shiver of fear mixed with resolve filled his chest. How would he respond to the danger that loomed so close? What was about to unfold could change everything. Malcolm cleared his throat and raised his chin, feeling the weight of the gaze from the figure in the gray suit. In that moment he was no longer just one man standing in front of a crowd. He was the voice of every person who felt silenced, every soul who had fought against odds stacked high and heavy. "Your threats won't work here," he said, his voice steady, resonating in the charged air. "Every story in this room matters. Every fear, every hope, they're part of us, part of who we are as a community. We will not shrink away because someone wants to silence us." There was a ripple of murmurs, igniting sparks of hope around him. Claire looked fierce, her lips a thin line of determination. "Think about what we've built together," Malcolm continued, his heart thumping louder than his anxiety. "Connections, friendships, we're not just strangers in this town anymore. We're neighbors, we're family. We can't let someone in a suit dictate our future." The crowd began to stir, some fists subtly raised, a few people nodding in agreement. He felt the shift, a tide turning, pulling them closer together. But the man in the gray suit didn't flinch. Instead, a chilling smile crept across his face. "And what family will you protect when that very family is threatened? What happens when the peace you speak of is disturbed?" "Enough." Claire's voice cut through the air like a blade. "We will not be baited. We're stronger than that, and we know what's at stake." Her interruption kindled a flame within Malcolm, and the energy in the community center shifted, igniting something other than fear. People shared heated whispers, casual camaraderie blossomed. This was about more than just fighting a threat, it was about asserting their right to stand together, to voice their truths without reservation. Let us speak our truths then. Malcolm raised his hands, palms open and inviting. Who wants to share? What have we seen? What do we need? Together we dismantle the fear. One by one, voices broke through the stories of triumph and heartbreak, tales of love, betrayal, and hope. Each chord struck a new note in the growing symphony of their collective spirit. Malcolm listened, rapt, his heart swelling with pride. But behind him, the man in the suit leaned against the wall, his eyes calculating, almost amused. It was as if he was dissecting every word, every heartbeat. Malcolm's chest tightened again. Was he really a threat? Or was he something more insidious? And what will you do? The suit interjected smoothly, when the truth you care about leads to conflict. Chaos? Malcolm turned to face that gaze again. The room silenced momentarily. Chaos? He repeated, his voice low but clear. No. What we build here today: unity, understanding. Peace will withstand whatever storm you toss our way. These stories create strength, not chaos. We are not afraid. As tension hung in the air, a thread of courage began to ripple through the crowd once more. Malcolm could see in their eyes they were ready for a fight, not with fists or weapons, but with their hearts and minds united. Are you ready to fight back? He called out. The conditions of the moment charged the air with electricity. This was the moment when the spark of truth ignited the room. Yes. A voice from the back rang out. Yes. Another echoed, and soon the whole room was alive with shouts of agreement, their spirits lifting each other higher. And yet, Malcolm couldn't shake the feeling that the man's presence was more than just intimidation. He understood that the real battle may have just begun. As Claire stepped beside him, their eyes locked in shared determination, Malcolm couldn't help but wonder, who was this man really? And how deep did his power reach? A new sense of urgency gripped his heart as he realized the fight ahead was far from over. What was at stake now was not just their voices but their very lives. Would they remain united long enough to face the challenge ahead? The sunlight streamed through the community center's windows, illuminating the faces charged with hope and defiance. But Malcolm felt a flicker of dread. The gray-suited man was still there, and as the crowd rooted in their resolve, Malcolm grappled with a nagging fear. Would this newfound unity hold when faced with the opposition? As the clamoring expressions of support swept through the room, Malcolm sensed that the moment to truly ignite their collective strength had arrived. He stepped forward once more, taking a deep breath, letting the energy of the room wash over him. We stand here not just to shout against injustice, but to forge a path forward together, he declared, voice ringing with determination. We've heard the stories. Each one matters. But now it's time to shape those voices into action. Who's ready to take that leap? A wave surged through the room. We are. They chorused, a crescendo of power filling the air. Malcolm raised his hands to calm the escalating excitement. Before we go further, let us focus our energy. We need clear goals, action steps we can take as a community, not just for today, but for the future our children deserve. He scanned the crowd, looking for allies, for leaders among them. Anna, you shared about organizing workshops. Let us structure that. Claire, you know the schools. Let us ensure our youth are empowered. Marcus, can you rally our local businesses? Each time he turned, a small flame ignited, and it felt electric to see his neighbors stepping up. Yes. Claire fed off the momentum. We need a community meeting schedule, ways to involve everyone, and we can even invite experts to educate about our rights and community resources. The room buzzed with enthusiasm and determination. They tossed ideas around, laughter and passion mixed with serious discussions. Suddenly, the gray-suited man stepped closer, his body language tightening, a calculated observation that sent chills through Malcolm. Let us not kid ourselves, he spoke, voice slithering through the optimistic noise. Plans are fine, words are fine. But the only thing that has ever mattered is power. You'll find that out soon enough. Malcolm felt anger boil in his veins. We are the power, he shot back, fists clenched, sparks igniting as the crowd leaned closer. Our voices, our unity, that's what you underestimate. This community will rise together. The heartbeat of their collective fear and courage pulsed around him. Each person was living proof that silence was no longer an option. In this moment, their stories united a chorus of defiance, raw and alive. But the man's smirk said it all. We'll see, he challenged, stepping back, receding into the folds of the crowd. What was his game? Malcolm's heart raced. An alarm sounded deep within him, yet he refused to falter. Let us not allow fear to cast a shadow over us. Malcolm continued, his voice ringing clear. Change requires vulnerability, courage, and action. We've come too far to back down. With bold resolve coursing through them, they crafted plans, formed committees, signed up for initiatives, energy boiling over as they prepared to face the uncertain future looming ahead. As the meeting concluded, a wave of gratitude washed over Malcolm. They would do this together, step by painstaking step, no matter the hurdles. But in the back of his mind, that man lingered an ominous reminder that they would likely encounter more than just words that evening. As Malcolm returned home, the pulse of the day still thumped in his veins. He reflected on the moments that had led to this point. The laughter, the stories, and the inexplicable bond forming between so many. The bond, yes, the hope they were building was more than just a shield against fear. It was a testament to their resilience, an understanding that the true fight had begun. The soft knock at his door broke his reverie. It was Claire again, her smile a welcome sight. You did it, she said, her eyes sparkling with pride. I couldn't have done it without all of you, he replied, heart swelling. Still, she pressed, we have to be prepared. The man in the suit. I don't think he'll back down easily. She was right. The battle would require vigilance and strength. But together, he replied, a resolution forming, we're stronger. Change is on the horizon. Let us keep pushing, Claire said, firm in her resolve. And whatever comes next, we face it together. As they delved back into their strategies, a sense of purpose enveloped them. The road ahead was dark, but with each step, they would illuminate a path to change. Through confrontations, challenges, and uncertainty, Malcolm realized that rising against the darkness meant not only fighting for their voices but for each other. A community woven together through unbreakable bonds. This was just the beginning, and he was ready. As the moon shone bright, highlighting the shadows lurking, Malcolm felt a fierce determination radiate from deep within. The fight for justice would not be fought alone. It would ripple outwards, touching every corner of their lives, igniting flames of resistance and hope in anyone willing to stand. And so, the final chapter of their transformation from silence to empowerment began not just as a group of individuals, but as a family bound by shared dreams and unyielding love. The fight was far from over, but they had each other, and through that collective spirit, they would become unstoppable. If you are reading this, don't you dare hesitate. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button now, your support is vital for the algorithm. Comment your reactions, thoughts, and inspiration from this powerful ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support the channel. And this is the moment to show it. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions.